Well, hi, this is Lynn McCright and Teresa Walding with Advancing Nurse Coaching. We are so pleased to be here with you. We have a goal in mind, which is to bring new life to ourselves and our profession. We are creating this video especially for nurses. Other health professionals are welcome to listen in. You'll understand our language. And the title says it all: less stress, more joy, hope for helpers. We're explaining some principles that are universal principles and will help each of us every day the rest of our lives.
All right, let's begin. I'd like to welcome everyone to this video, and I just want you to know that Lynn and I have a heart for nurses to help us be more resilient, to enjoy collegiality, and to come together as a group to not just care for others, but care for ourselves as we care for others. So this program, we're talking about resilience in motion. And I think that resilience is kind of one of those words that we don't really understand, and we're putting a little bit of a new context on it to help us kind of see that we are resilient already, right now, this moment. So I'd like you to kind of put everything else you're doing aside just for a second, take a listen, and see if you can hear something new, something that can help you in the moment, especially in your busiest moments, or even when you sit in your car just before you go home and realize, no nurse ever went to work to do a bad job. We are here to take care of people. Most of it is our calling, and we're just so happy to be here now and enjoy the conversation. See if you can see something new.
So Florence Nightingale told us that in the year 1870, that it would be 150 years before people saw the kind of nursing that she envisions. And we're bringing that new vision to you now, our perspective of what she had seen nursing evolving into. So a huge part of this resilience in motion, it centers around the principle of thought. So thought is actually a gift that we have, a gift and a power. And we have the green arrow pointing down, which is talking about stress, and the HPA axis. You've heard of the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. That's a normal part of our body that is always in place, working on our behalf. We are going to talk about stress resolution, bringing what appears to be stress to a resolution. And then beyond that, we're going to be talking about preventing stress.
We're all pretty familiar with that fight or flight response, that being at alert, tense, ready to go. That response comes from the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. We have a thought, we perceive danger, and we do something about it. That system was actually only intended to be activated about every 30 minutes, about every 2 to 3 days, just as needed to keep us safe. But now, under modern conditions, people live in that state of stress 16, 18, 20 hours a day, and we don't even know it. It has become the norm. And what we want to talk about here is how that stress gets there and how our body perceives it, and then how to release that stress from our body and our mind to become present to the moment and to tap into that place that's always there, that helps us to become resilient in the moment all the time. This is just a little picture of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and as you can see, it affects every aspect of our body. When we have stress for as many hours a day as we do, we can see why the diseases that we have in our society are there. The hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis activates increased tensile strength to our arteries and our veins. Our muscles become toned. Our digestive system shuts down. We dump all the sugar into our system because we now need it to run. However, when it has nowhere to go and no release, it stays within our system. And we see things like high blood pressure and heart disease and diabetes, adrenal fatigue. That's how the stress hurts our bodies. And what we'd like to talk about today is how to release that stress and put our bodies back into a state of health, because that is our default setting. Our body is always trying to seek health, to put it back into the state where it functions the best. And it really does come down to the mind-body connection. Our thoughts, our feelings activate these systems within us. It's the perfect system.
Great. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah. So chronic stress, we know what that's like. We have all these tasks, everything that we have to do in our life. If we have children, we're taking care of daycare, bottles, feedings, worrying about school, cooking dinners, going to work, taking care of spouses. That doesn't leave a lot of time for ourselves. But even in that space, if we realize the stress that we create is really based on the way we think about life, we might be able to see a little something different. The effects of stress on our bodies or on our brains is actually, you can see it on these pictures. The left side is the normal brain with just the normal functioning, everyday working. We can see on the right side, like when something happens, maybe we get hurt or we have a stressful event, different parts of our brain will light up and then it'll ebb back down to the brain without pain. But if we are in a chronic state of stress or a chronic state of pain, those areas stay lit up all the time. We experience that as anxiety or fatigue or pain. And so that right there shows you the mind-body connection. We're not separate from what we think about life. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you hear what we're going to talk about as far as principles that help us navigate life.
So
one thing okay, go ahead.
I love the way that this is, looks like a rainbow of colors. And starting in the upper left, it's our mind, and our behavior comes from the mind. And then our emotions are felt, and our body experiences a definite way of experiencing stress. But stress is in the middle. There's a rainbow around it, because there is stress is a neutral thing. It's depending on how we look at any given situation. You might have one person who is experiencing, for example, a divorce, and they're elated by it. And there is another person who's very depressed. So the circumstances on the face of it looks the same, but it's the interpretation of the individual that we experience as our life. So just for example, on mind, you see at the top, worrying. And then below that in the behavior, accident prone. Well, isn't that what happens in nursing? We start to worry, our mind wanders, and we make a med error. That's accident prone. The behavior was caused by the worrying, not keeping our focus on what we were doing in the moment, not what was happening right now, but rather thinking about something in the past or something in the future, when we need to keep focused and keep our mind on what we're doing in the moment. So our emotions go right along with our mind and our behavior, and we'll feel those emotions in our body with headaches or muscular twitches.
One thing you can ask yourself as you're experiencing these things, my default setting seems to be worry, and I never knew that. Worry is my own thinking. Worry is a thought. But where do you think your feelings are coming from? Sometimes it looks like it's coming from a circumstance. It looks like it's coming from a boss or a child or whatever it is you have to do if you're in school. It maybe look like homework. But it's actually your thinking about it that creates your experience. So I just kind of want you to hear that and know that every experience that we have comes to us through thought, our personal thought, the way we interpret whatever is coming to us as our experience. And we'd like to show you that your experience is always coming from your perceptions of what you think about life. We actually have a new definition. Resilience is not being bound by circumstances or the past. A dear friend of ours, Valda Monroe, came up with that definition, and we love it because it really speaks to being in the present moment. We're not bound by circumstances. We're not bound by the past. And since we don't know what the future holds, we're not bound by that either. That only puts us in this one place right here, right now, that we have to deal with. Nothing else is actually real.
I just think it's so freeing. Circumstances in the past are not a hindrance to us. We are not bound by the past or by circumstance.
So that being said, we're going to talk just for a minute about what these three principles are. These principles of mind, principle of mind, consciousness, and thought. Those may be new words for you, new idea. The way that we're talking about these is as if they're elements like hydrogen or oxygen that create water. You can't break those down anymore. So saying that, we can't break down mind, consciousness, and thought any more than that. That's also to say that they are elements that must exist together for us to have a human psychological experience. And when we do that, we now create a paradigm that allows us to navigate life a little bit easier.
The principle of mind is easily understood by all societies in the world. We have different words for it all around the world. I like to call it the intelligence behind life. So there's an intelligence that's greater than we are. And when we are in touch with that universal intelligence, wisdom and insight simply flow. And we find ourselves in a place of reverence, a place of gratitude, a place of ease. And that principle of mind is always there in the background, working for us on our behalf.
The principle of consciousness is our capacity to be aware of reality through our senses. Consciousness is the light bulb that illuminates thought to produce the theater of life. That projector that we saw, that projector is our projector of our mind. Whatever we think is what we see. And our awareness that we can think is part of consciousness. And we interpret it through all of our senses. It gives us the full-bodied experience of life. And the principle of thought, which is where we do spend the most time talking with people about, is that's how we create our life. It's our personal thought. It's our thoughts about everything. But as a principle, thought is actually neutral. It's just the constant flow of ideas that just go through us, that we may or may not pay attention to. Thought doesn't care what it thinks. It's neutral, from the very best to the very worst thoughts you can ever imagine. That's the movie reel of thought. It creates and plays our reality constantly. And we get to decide what those thoughts mean. And if you ever notice, you can actually watch thoughts go by and you're like, yeah, I'm not paying attention to that. Or you're like, oh, I really like that. And whatever you focus on is what you get. Lynn, do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, we know that thought is going on 24/7, 365. Even when we're sleeping, we're thinking. Have you ever woken up from a dream? I have a friend who thought that he was standing at the edge of a cliff and about to fall off and just sweating profusely. And he woke up in terror. His heart was beating. And he thought, wow, I'm really hot here. I could be lying on a beach in Hawaii. So he took himself there and thought, lying on a beach in Hawaii, didn't mind being hot and sweaty at all, fell right back to sleep again. We can choose. We have the opportunity now to know that even in our sleep, we make up our thoughts, and we can choose to hang on to those or not. We can let them go like clouds in the sky and just be the observer watching them pass by, or we can hang on to them. And the thing about letting them go is that they will always be replaced. And it's not through any effort on our part. Thought will simply flow. And we have the opportunity to enjoy it. We have the opportunity to see that we're making it up. We have the opportunity to drop our worry and distractions.
So we experience our thoughts when we're in the present, calm, peaceful, and we can see a beautiful world. Look for a feeling, that feeling of connection to universal source. But it is our own projection of our thoughts out into the world. That becomes our experience of life. And I really like the movie projector idea, the analogy, because it says, I'm the one creating this in here. And whatever I see is what I see on the tapestry of life. And we each bring that with us, our own personal projectors that project our vision or our view of life every moment of every day. And when you can see that you are the creator of it, you can also see how you're using your thoughts to experience life and recognize when maybe you're thinking something else is responsible for how you're feeling. And when you see it for yourself, that that's all that's happening is you're thinking about it, you can actually drop thoughts that don't help you, that don't do anything but cause, I want to say strife, but it's more that thinking about something else is responsible for the way you feel. And we have words in our society for that. No one can make you think or feel anything you don't want to. That's a true statement. But it's very convincing sometimes to think that something else is responsible. When we're not connected, when we don't know or we forget that we are actually the thinker and feeler of our thoughts, we become disconnected and fragmented. We start looking for other ways to get relief from our stress, and we begin to talk about the circumstance or the problem or what somebody said or what somebody did. That's actually a never-ending process to discontent, to stress, increased stress. When we become stressed by latching onto these negative thinking, negative thoughts, we focus on almost everything except for the present moment. We take the past and bring it to the present and say, that's why this is happening. Or we worry about something in the future and say, that's why I'm upset. The reality is you're thinking it in the moment and you just forgot that that's what was happening. And there's nothing to do about that but recognize it and know that as soon as you realize that, again, because I go through the process of losing it and finding it all the time, I find I'm okay. I'm fine that I really can handle what's happening right here, right now, because I have no other choice. We make the best decisions that we can every moment that we're doing something in this life. That's the unfolding of life as we experience it day to day.
So there's no other place to be. I love that being here in the present moment is where we feel truth and insight. And it is the feeling of connection to the universal source that we're experiencing when we're in the focusing on what we're doing now. We're not worrying about the future. We're not regretting about the past. We're here taking the next step, doing what needs to be done. And Teresa's a perfect example of that, working in post-anesthesia recovery and having a very complex patient. Do you want to just say a quick word about that, Teresa?
I had a patient one day that came out of surgery that couldn't breathe. And I remember even in the moment of taking care of her for 6 hours in the PACU and doing a lot of tests and a lot of medications and BiPAP and all of the things that you would do to help someone, I found myself in a state of flow, like just doing the next thing that came and doing the next thing that came. And there was an ease there that when it was all over and I brought her to the ICU and we get there and she's like, I'm feeling so much better. And she got up and walked to the restroom and I was like, wow. Being in the present moment was so much easier than resisting everything that came along. Like, I don't want this to happen. And I don't want that to happen. Or I'm afraid of, maybe I'm not going to make the right decision. I look back on this circumstance and I realized there was not one decision that I regretted. I feel that I made every decision in the moment that was exactly right for her. And it showed in the end that, being present and aware and taking care of, her fears and giving her the best care that I could was the wonderful feeling of why I went into nursing. Every time I remember it, it brings back that feeling of, this is why I do what I do. This is why it matters. It's as if we finally have a practical reason to be here. Knowing that this place is available, I find it much more quickly. And I'm not saying I find it all the time, because I don't. But every time I do, I remember I am the one who is the thinker and feeler of my experience. And I do get to choose what I put my attention on. And if I put my attention on everything that could have been wrong or was wrong, I don't think my experience would have been the same. So I know that place is there. I've experienced it. I'm sure that you have too. I used to work with a nurse in the ICU when I first got out of nursing school. And she would come in and sit down and start knitting. And I'm thinking to myself, why is she doing that? So one day I asked her and she said, we're going to get it all done. We're going to get it done together. But I'm going to take about 10 minutes here and bring myself here so that I can be with everyone that's here. And I always remember that it was a really, really good thing for me to see as a brand new nurse in ICU of all places, that someone could have that calming effect on the entire unit. And it happens in the present moment. It happens when you are aware and know that you have everything within you right now to do everything you need to do. We all do. It's our birthright.
Oh, Teresa, so this is our big takeaway. When we find ourselves living inside out, we get in touch with a place of love, compassion, gratitude, and inner strength. This is resilience.
It's always there. Even when we can't see it, it's there. And we just thank you for taking a listen and seeing maybe there is a better way. We can help each other. We do know how to take care of people. We know how to take care of ourselves. Knowing where our experience is coming from really does give us that foundation that's always been there, that we talked about as the principles of mind, thought, and consciousness. Those principles have never changed. It's the way we use our thought that helps us to see them or not, as being the rudder that helps us navigate life.
Resilience is the feeling of connection to our universal source, and that's always available to us.
So if you can stop, take a deep breath, get in touch with that warm, good feeling, and know that that's yours, that you can find that anytime you remember that that's there for you. So as a takeaway from here, remember to play, remember to be with your friends and family. Do something you love, laugh. It's here for us to enjoy. And that's what I want for nurses, is for us to laugh and play and enjoy each other and have that collegiality that says, hey, I got your back. I'm here for you. I know it's hard sometimes, but there is joy to be had, even in these circumstances, in a pandemic or the craziness of life. It's always available if we have the eyes to see it or the ears to hear it.
And if you want to get in touch with Lynn or Teresa, it's as simple as nursecoaching.com. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you from our heart of hearts for choosing nursing as your profession. Talk to you.
Take care.